Hey, Steve Riley, welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And I have an extraordinary guest today, a longtime Atticus member, a longtime thinker, strategist, and a guy I'm a huge fan of, Lonny Balbi. Lonny, how you doing?
Thank you very much, Steve. Yeah, great. Everything's great. Love to hear from you, and love trying to do something here for Atticus. It's awesome.
Oh, I greatly appreciate it. So just let's take a moment to tell everybody where you're at, what your practice is, and a little bit about your background before we dig into the topic of today, because I want people to have context before you and I tear into this.
Sure. Well, okay. So I'm an attorney in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So I'm way far away from most of you guys. I've been doing family law for over 40 years. So my practice is really restricted to the family law area, and yeah. So I have a big background in that area. I've learned the system. And then, we're going to talk a little bit about an idea that I came up with many years ago, and it's proven to be a great system, a great way to make money, and a great way to serve your clients in a much better way.
Well, that's perfect because a lot of lawyers, especially family law lawyers, seem to be stuck in a particular mindset. And I think you're the first one, probably one of two that I know that broke loose probably 20, 25 years ago in packaging and breaking away from the billable hour. So I just want to dive into this particular topic. So, and I'll put in the show notes, I'll put links to your firm. So if anybody needs any great representation in Canada, you're the guy to go to. But what was the problem that you saw? And what were you wrestling with? And how did you come up with this idea?
So the problem that I saw, Steve, was that it is the hourly rate. I mean, I thought, I kept thinking about that. You could be standing in the shower thinking about something, and you can get a solution for a client that took you 5 minutes to think about it. And if I build my hourly rate for that time, I could save a person $100,000, and it took me 5 minutes to do that. And that made no sense to me. And I tried to think of it in terms of, if I were the client, how would I want to do things, or how much would I be willing to pay, for example, for something like that? And I suppose from a sort of an economic standpoint, I guess I'm willing to pay up to the amount I saved, right? I mean, if I could pay you $99,000 to save 100,000, I suppose that would make sense. But even on a more on the basis of, how do I provide great value for clients? And that's what really led to this whole concept, the whole idea behind it.
So the hourly rate's always been a problem, especially now with the growth and restrictions of how to bill using AI. It's going to drive down the use of hourly billing in certain firms for certain functions. Everything from summarizing a depot to doing legal research to drafting a motion is getting quicker, faster, and cheaper. And most of the ethical rules basically say that you can't charge for quicker, faster, cheaper. You only can charge for the actual work that you did. So the innovation of making it quicker and faster and cheaper for the client, that's cost savings, get passed on to the client. So it's one of the problems with hourly rate is that you really don't get a way of being rewarded for innovating in your firm or making things quicker, faster, and cheaper. If anything, you get punished for quicker, faster, cheaper.
If I could just say this, Steve, sorry, that also look at it from the standpoint of the client, right? Like, what, not just making it quicker, cheaper, faster for me, how can I make it better and more value for the client, right? That's a real key consideration.
Yeah, that's perfect because that's the pivot, right? So once you start to pivot, you have to say, what would my client want? How would this make a difference for them? How can I shift? And it requires the lawyers to pay attention. I've been doing a lot of work with firms on how to improve their billable hour productivity. And it's really amazing to me how many lawyers are hung up on how they bill for stuff versus how they make a difference for the client. How do they actually make a difference in the activity that you're doing for the client? And I think that mind shift is critical. So, talk to me more about what this idea is and how you developed it and how you unfolded it.
Great. And I love what you just said. That's a lot of people don't see the other side of it. Okay. So let me tell you this. when people first come to see an attorney, we often have, and we use the term initial consultation. We hear that a lot, probably in other areas as well, but certainly in the family law field. People come to see a lawyer, and what they do is they look for an initial consultation, and usually the word free goes in front of it, free initial consultation. And so there's many different variations of that. Some people charge, like they'll do a free half hour, and then they'll start charging after that, or they'll charge a lower hourly rate, or sometimes it's just they'll charge their normal hourly rate for that initial consultation. So a couple of things that I thought made more sense. Number one is get away from that language, get away from that whole thing of consultation, initial consultation. Just don't even use those terms, because it's really easy for that word free to get stuck in there. Secondly, I thought that in my mind, and certainly in I've been able to convince clients of this as well, is that meeting, the meeting that you have with your attorney, the very first meeting, is probably the most important meeting you're ever going to have with your attorney, because you're going to expectations are going to be set, strategies are going to be developed. They're going to learn about what it is that they should do. What are the next steps in the separation or the divorce? So for me, I thought I took it, and like I said, I turned it around on its head, and I said that get away from that language, call it something different. So I call it a matrimonial assessment. Okay, that's my term, but you could call it anything you wanted. But you could call it a schmidschmodge, as long as just don't use the term initial consultation.
Well, let's slow down. Let me slow down just for a second.
Yeah.
Although schmidschmodge probably is more trademarkable than matrimonial assessment. Let's slow down for a second. So the first thing I want the audience to listen to is that you're immediately breaking away from the commoditization of the term of free consultation. And to break loose of that, you have to reframe it and reposition it. So for all the lawyers that are listening and team listening, what Lonny's done here brilliantly is immediately decommoditized himself so he doesn't look like everyone else, because free consultation is in fact a commodity by itself. It's a commodity because when people look for free, and if it's free, it is a commodity. So you're immediately in the eyes of the prospect, in the eyes of the consumer, trying to break it out of the commodity trap. And the commodity trap is, how do I get it cheaper, or how do I get it free, or how much does it cost? So it's very important, for the listeners. I just want to slow down. And you've done a lot of thinking on this. I've known you for a long time. And you're jumping right to the conclusion. So I want to take that apart just a little bit. I mean, I think for you strategically, that was part of the purpose for this, to distinguish yourself in the marketplace. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. So I just want to slow it down. So what happened next in your thinking? Like you said, okay, I'm not going to do a free consultation. I'm going to reframe it as a marital assessment. What happened next in your thinking about it?
So what we did, or what I did, was I wanted to give really good value to the client. Okay, so this was important to me. It's not sort of about money and what the cost is or anything. That wasn't the issue. The issue is, what can I do to give a client better value for this matrimonial assessment? So what we did was we first of all got away from the time that this thing took. Okay, we didn't say to people this would be an hour or a 2-hour meeting. We just said it takes whatever it takes. So just get away from the time. And we said that, so what'll happen is, and it's really important, it's done in this order, that you have to make sure that prospective clients are given the value proposition. What makes this so valuable? Okay, so you're going to meet with an attorney that has experience in family law, obviously. We're going to go through all of the facts with you, make sure we understand it 100%. We will then give you advice on each of the legal issues that come up. We're going to record the entire conversation, and we're going to give you a copy of that recording, including all of the advice that you're going to be given. We're going to talk about all of the options that are available for settlement, the different ways, anything from, I call it the kitchen table approach, where the two parties can work out a deal around the kitchen table on their own, right through to going to court and everything in between. So I go through each one of those things. I'll explain what are the pros and cons are of each of those and the costs of each of those. And then I will, of course, talk about what we call tips and strategies. I will give you the tips and strategies that you should do that are cheap and inexpensive that you could do right away to improve your situation. I will then give you reading material on your issues. For example, we have a series of books that we keep here. We buy them by the caseload, and depending on what the issue is, if it's a parenting issue, we've got a book on parenting. We've got an issue. We've got a book on people who are having real difficulty with a separation. They're psychologically really hurting. I've got a book on that. And we give them books for free. Like they just, whatever the issue is, we'll give them that material. If there's children involved, we've produced a DVD or a memory stick, and it's a video about an hour and a half long of some psychologists that talk about things that children go through in when people are separating, and we give them that DVD or the video, I guess, so that they can review it, and it's got about 42 little tips on how to improve the situation for your children. So we call that keeping your children out of the middle of the divorce. So we've got that. And then at the end, again, answer all the client's questions. And then at the end of all of that, then we talk about price. But the first thing is value. So it's not an initial consultation. It takes considerably longer than that. And at the end of that process, I always like to tell people that I want you to be able to make an informed choice on how you want to proceed given this meeting. And so that meeting is packed with value. It's so rare that I get anybody that has any pushback on the cost. I'll tell you the cost. To do all of that, I charge, in Canada, I charge $3,150, $3,000 plus tax, so $3,150 for that. Now remember, I have to get away from the hourly rate thing. It's not about hours. I mean, I can tell you my experience is that it usually takes me about 2 hours to do this, but that's, again, it could take 3, it could take 1.5, but it's not about time. It's about providing the client with value. I want to make sure when they leave here, they have really good information. You know, they've got a video, they've got a recording of our conversation. I like to tell people to relax. You're welcome to take notes, but if you don't want to take notes, don't take any notes. I'm recording the conversation, and I'll give you a copy of that recording so you can take it home and listen to it.
That's perfect. It's a significant contrast of how I would position the classic initial consultation, free or not free, which basically is kind of a meet and greet, restricted advice, especially if it's free, because the last thing the lawyer wants to do is get hooked into giving legal advice where they don't have facts, they don't have information, right? They don't have documentation.
Drives me crazy.
And typically it's constrained to a length of time. And at the end, there is a pitch by the law firm to work with the law firm, right? So if it's a free consultation, the person's going in knowing there's a close at the end. There will be a pitch of some form. And so they're not really getting full advice, and the client's not giving full disclosure. This is one of the things I've always despised about the free consultation, especially a lawyer doing a free consultation, something I've railed against for years. So what you did brilliantly was contrasted it quickly, took it out of the commodization, broke away from the hourly rate, packaged it beautifully, and then you set expectations up front. Here's what you get. Here you get this, you get this, you get this, you get this, and that's your investment. And then for that investment, you receive the following thing. So the packaging is terrific. It's really, really well done. I'll put a link in the show notes for people who want to check it out. One of the things that you also do really nicely on your website is you basically have a tab, start here. This is where to start. And it takes you right down to a video of the marital assessment process. Doesn't talk about divorce, doesn't talk about how long it's going to take, it doesn't talk anything. It just focuses on selling the marital assessment as step one, which is perfect. Absolutely perfect marketing, absolutely perfect packaging. So it's very well done, very well done. What else do you want to say about this? Because I've got lots of questions for you. Hey, Steve, I just want to talk to you for a minute about a new workshop that we've been teaching. It's probably my favorite workshop to teach right now. It's called The Path to a Great Practice and a Great Life. So it doesn't matter if you're a member or if you're new to Atticus, this is a perfect place to come and start your journey of what a great practice and a great life looks like to you. There are 4 elements to the workshop. So we're going to play for 4 things. 1, we're going to play to double your income. We're going to look for ways of increasing profits to pay for changes in your practice. We're going to look at what key business skills drive business growth for you in your practice. And we're going to look for ways of increasing the capacity in your practice to drive revenue. The first is about your income. If you're going to have a great practice and a great life, you're going to need some cash. So when it comes to building cash, the first thing that you want to do is look for ways of breaking through your income. One of the questions I always get asked is there a shortcut? Is there a quicker and easier way of making more money? There is, but there's a catch to it. In order to make more money, you want to study how other lawyers have increased the income and the growth of their practice. One of the things we've done at Atticus for the past 35 years is study what the top 20% earners do, what the top 10% earners do, and ultimately, what do the top 1% earners do? One of the things that we do in the Path to Great Practice and Great Life workshop is reveal and look at what are the 4 core strategies of a top 1% attorney and how you can learn from that 1%er in increasing your practice. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a 1% attorney, but you can study how the top players perform better, and that can be your shortcut. To grow your practice faster, you need to have a bold vision for what your life looks like. The wind in your sails for growth is ultimately the vision of what a great life looks like. In my experience, lawyers that have a terrific, powerful vision for a great life will grow a great practice quicker, faster, and more efficiently than those who don't. The next thing you need to do is focus on the steps to execute on your vision. It's one thing to have a dream. It's another thing to take action and build foundations under that dream. That's the next thing that we'll work on the workshop. What are the steps you're going to take immediately from the workshop to start building on your vision of a great life and great practice? So if you're a fan of the conversation of what a great practice and great life looks like, this is the greatest opportunity for you to take action now and register for the workshop so we can work together on taking your vision of your great practice and great life and making it come to life. A link to register is included in the show notes, as well as a longer video by me explaining each element of the workshop. If you're a member of Atticus, it's included already in your membership. If you're new to Atticus, I'm giving you a promo code that will take $500 off. All you have to do is click the link below and put in podcast 500, and it'll get you the discount. So hit the link, register for the workshop. I look forward to seeing you there. With that, I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. What else do you want to say about this? Because I've got lots of questions for you.
Well, okay. I mean, there's a few things that Steve, I could just maybe expand a little bit on. So you're right that this is a system, right? You know, it's been developed as a system. We've tried to, when I started it, I'm going to tell you the truth is, I thought I was the only person in the world that I could talk to a person on the phone and I could figure out what they need within about 5 minutes, because I just knew, I've been doing it long enough, I could figure it out. But we've been able to, and we have developed it into a system so that I don't even have to have that phone call with the client at the beginning. We have staff that what they'll do is they go through all of this. We have scripts, in place for how the staff talk to the people. If they're not suitable for our practice, if they need legal aid or something like that, they will direct them to another way to go. It won't be with us. But if they do meet our criteria, then they go through everything in our system. And again, there's a way to do this that I think is really important. And as I've said a little bit earlier, that talk about the value. The value is really important. Get away from the initial consultation concept or idea. Sometimes people will raise that and they'll say, wait a minute, I just talked to another attorney and he said that he would do this for half an hour. And again, the script would say, well, that's a very different thing than what we're doing. We're going to give you you're going to be walking out of here with good knowledge of what it is that you need to do, et cetera, going through all that, the video, the all of those things. And so we try to get them. It's a very different thing that we're trying to sell. Again, different name, and people. And again, you tell them the price up front. It's not a sort of a based on time. They show up at your office. They know exactly the fee. I've never had a collection problem yet because they pay when they come in, so it's not a problem. And then actually some Atticus principles, which is part of this, is that we do use client selection. We have a matrix that we put together that when the staff are talking to this person, we try to rate the client as an A, B, C, or D client based on their availability of do they take advice well, is it a high conflict matter, do they have assets, do they have income, etc. So we go through all of that and try to select so that we want to try to get obviously A and B clients in the firm, and so we go through that process again, sort of behind the scenes. And then another concept that I'll just mention to you is exclusivity. You kind of touched on it, and that is when a person comes in to see me, we make it very clear that I'm doing this assessment for them, but I will decide at the end whether I take them on as a client. Okay, it's a complete reversal of what normally, like you said, on a free initial consultation, there's going to be a pitch there of the person trying to get you to come in and retain them. I will let you know. And I can tell you how powerful that is. I was training a young lawyer a few years ago, and she sat in on one of these. And at the end of this meeting, I'm going through this whole meeting, and all the guy could think about was, "Are you going to take me on as are you going to be my attorney?" Like, I mean, he was begging me, and it was just amazing that my young lawyer was sitting there and watching this. But this guy, I mean, that's what he was thinking. Are you going to take me on? Are you going to accept me as your attorney? You have to. It's hard to do that, but you have to change your mindset. And it's true, because if I can do the assessment, I can provide great value for a person. It may not be the right fit for me, and I'll just tell you. I mean, I don't say to them, you're an awful person. I just say that I think that my schedule isn't going to work here for this. I want to make sure I give you good value. I'm going to try to help you find another attorney. I'm going to help you find somebody else. That's going to be part of my value proposition. If you can't have me, I'm going to make sure you get a good attorney. So I'll phone somebody. I'll try to get them set up. So that doesn't happen that often, because hopefully we've already done a good job of screening them before they come in. But if I find that I can remember one year I had a guy come to see me, and after the assessment, I mean he was now talking about wanting to pay me in stolen diamonds. Let's leave it at that. And I don't want to be part of that. Like, I was not going to be part of something that was a little bit underhanded. So I wasn't going to accept him as a client, and that was and I was able to pass it on, and it worked out fine. But exclusivity is a really important concept, I think. And then the last one I'll just mention to you real quickly is something we call the TLC. After this is all over, after the person's been in here and they've left the office, I mean, we do two other things. One is I do a memo to file of everything that we talked about, including the advice, and I send it to the client so that they have that. So that's just a little added extra, so that they didn't take notes. They've got the video, they've got the audio of our meeting, but I still do a memo because that memo is actually a really important part of the file if I continue with that client. But the TLC is, we have our staff contact the client after the meeting for once a week for 4 weeks, and the person either phones them or sends them an email and says, Lonny wanted to make sure you're okay, and hopefully everything's all right. And he also found an article that you might find of interest about one of the issues that you raised, and then he or she will just send that to the person automatically. And so they get an article that either I wrote or somebody else wrote, and we just send it to them. So what we're doing is, they think they've paid for everything, it's finished, and we're still contacting them. And I have a great story about that. It's just funny that one time I was doing, we were doing this TLC, and that we were following up, And at one point, the person actually phoned me back and said, I decided not to go with you. I ended up going with another attorney. And I can tell you, I made a mistake because, like, this other attorney, I can't even talk to him. And here you are. I paid you a long time ago, and you're still sending me stuff. So you're giving me value that I didn't even know I had. So that was a fun story.
But and it's great. It's a great thing because what you're doing is kind of baking in the follow up customer service,
Yeah.
and it's brilliantly done. Brilliantly done. I want to go back so the audience can hear a couple of things real quickly. So one of the wonderful things about this, and it's one of the things that I have encouraged lawyers to do, but they fight tooth and nail on this particular issue, which is getting them off the phone with initial prospects and getting them not meeting with unqualified prospects. And I see a lot of young lawyers do this. They're just desperate for work. And therefore they're like meeting with everything and anything that walks in the door. And they're kind of practicing pay the rent law. And they continue to keep that system and habit even after the practice starts to grow. So the two techniques or the three techniques I just want to highlight for Atticus members. Audience, I'll explain it to you, but if you're an Atticus member, one of the strategies that Lonnie's done brilliantly is what we call air traffic control, having that person pre-qualify and select whether or not that plane lands on your schedule, so to speak, and with who it should land. Two, the client intake matrix is absolutely beautifully highlighted here, where you said, okay, is an A client, a B client, a C client, and you're not even involved in that anymore. So it saves so much time, right? Because your team's like, just nope, 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 yes, nope, maybe, yes, nope. And then you're not doing any of that. And three, the packaging of the marital assessment so that someone else can explain it, explain the value proposition, and for lack of a better word, sell it. Now, for the lawyers that are listening, hopefully you'll see that this is a masterful time management and focusing strategy because we're improving the prospect pipeline all the way up to the initial meeting. And we've got Lonnie extracted from it. Lonnie's only now meeting with A plus clients or A minus, or maybe B plus clients, but the whole process eliminates all of that waste of time that a lot of lawyers are dealing with. So I think it's very, very important. And you did a great job with this, really great job. I hope people appreciate and hear it. And I know that I can talk about this for a few minutes. Um, so let me kind of turn it back to you on this. What did you learn from doing this? Like, what did you learn about the practice of law? What did you learn about business? What did you learn about this whole process?
Well, yeah. I mean, so as I said, I mean, how can I say this? I thought I was the only person who could really, you know, judge clients. Let's just say that. And I found that no, I can extricate myself from that process, and I can train people to do it. So that was an interesting development that it took me a while before I got there, but I finally got there. The other thing is that I know that there's a big reluctance amongst attorneys. I find this all the time. They don't feel that they can charge that amount of money for this thing. They just feel like it's too much money, and that's a mindset for sure. It's a mindset because I've been doing it for years. I mean, my rate is, on an hourly basis, it's kind of a ridiculous rate, but I'm not doing it on an hourly basis. I am providing you with a package, and I want it to be good value, and I don't want anybody walking away saying that was a lot of money for that. I want them to say, yeah, that was worth it. Like that was great. That's great information. And that's always been my focus is I want how can I provide more value? In fact, I mean, I didn't even mention this. One of the things that we had done as an extra value was an idea that when people come in here and they've done this assessment, sometimes we want to give them something extra. And what we did is we would give them a subscription to a magazine, like it would be there was Oprah's magazine or something like that, so, a fitness magazine. We had a list of them, and we would give them a 1 year subscription. So what I loved about that is this magazine would show up every month, and they would think of us because we gave it to them, and it's a small cost for us, but we would give it to them as an extra added incentive, sort of to, that they, man, we're trying to provide good value. And again, it's not a kitschy thing. It's like, it depends on the person. If somebody's really into fitness, maybe that's something that they would want. Or, like I said, Oprah, or forget, I mean, we had so many magazines that we would give people. If they wanted them, we would just give them a subscription. So always trying to give them more value. That was always, that's really what I learned.
I love that so much. It's so much more effective than sending somebody your law firm newsletter. I
Oh,
mean, you can absolutely send them the law firm newsletter. There's no problem with that. But actually sending them a magazine once a month that they get from you, that was a gift. It's probably going to be far more impactful. I'm just laughing because it's so simple, so elegant, and yet so good. That's really great, Lonnie. I didn't know
thank you.
you did that. I didn't know
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
a new.
that's a new enhancement.
Yeah, that's new. So it would seem obvious to me that you would be able to do some form of licensing of this process to other lawyers, like train other lawyers to do that. Do you do that? Have you done that? What's going on?
Yeah, you can. Thanks for asking. Yes, we have. We have licensed it. We do have a license agreement. And in fact, I mean, I've done it with a number of Atticus graduates back when I took the initial stuff with Mark Powers. And Mark was, he was a big believer in this. He was always behind me and still is. And so what we've done is we have a system to train people on how to use it. How, we give them, it includes a bunch of the video recordings. Learn how to do the system, right? And just have some confidence that it can work. I mean, I've been doing it for so many years. I don't even know. I have to think 25 or 30 years now,
Yeah,
maybe
I
20,
think it's
25
probably
anyway.
it's 25. The
25
first time,
anyway, and
yeah.
I still doing it. No pushback. And I'm in my market. My market's about, I don't know, we're maybe 1.2 million people in my city, and no problem. No problem. I'm still able to do it. I don't get any pushback, and people should do it. But it's getting people over the hump. I know that the people that I've trained in the past. I have a really a good friend of mine. He's in Texas, and I did some training for him, and he was great. He took it on, and then I talked to him about a year later. I followed up with him, and he says, "Well, now we're just charging our hourly rate." And oh no, don't do that. Don't go back to the hourly rate. Understand the value of the proposition. And he just couldn't get himself around it, and it drives me nuts. But anyway,
No, no, no. I'm with you. I'm with you. Look, I first met you when you attended a W. Rogan workshop, I think 25 years ago.
yeah,
And the one thing I still remember about you is that you brought in donuts that you flew all the way from
that's
Calgary,
that's
which
right.
you brought in donuts. And I'm like, first off, I was like, you're very handsome, charming, charismatic guy, which is alone great. But then you brought donuts with you, and everybody like was in love with you. Like we all love Lonnie, and so it was like, this guy brought donuts all the way from Calgary. I mean, who does that? That's crazy. I mean, it's fun.
I forgot about that. Thanks for
Yeah,
reminding me.
yeah, it was great. It was great. So it was kind of my first introduction to all things Lonnie. And you do have a great life, and you've built a great practice. I want to spend a few minutes with you though on the challenge because both of you and I have licensed and coached other lawyers on processes. I had the Family Protector program. I had your Corporate Counsel Advantage, which was a corporate process, and you and I have talked about this, off camera, so to speak. And I have my working theories, but when you tell lawyers that you're charging $3,000 for a matrimonial assessment, and I'll put links for people that are interested in checking out and talking to you about licensing. I'll put links in the show notes and things like that, and your contact information so they can reach out to you and talk to you about it. But what's generally the pushback? What do lawyers usually say? I'll tell you what I hear, but I want to hear what you say. Have lawyers say?
Well, yeah, we were talking about your system, your corporate counsel system, which I think is brilliant. I've always loved it. I told you that before. I thought it was a really well done system because as a user, I thought it would be fantastic. But in terms of, what's the pushback? So again, remembering that you shouldn't be talking about the price of the thing before you talk about the value. Okay, the value is really important, and you have to make sure that's where your concentration has to be. The pushback I often get is that, look, Lonnie, you don't understand my market. The market that I'm in is different than yours, and we have people across the street that'll do this for free, or whatever. You're going to get all sorts of that. That's the biggest thing I get, and I just need people to have the confidence to do this properly. And once you learn, again, if you really, if your mindset is around, make sure I'm providing good value. I want great value for these people. If you can get your head around that, then the price becomes, again, it'll become a non-issue for them, and it'll become a non-issue for you. But that's probably the biggest pushback. How about you, Steve?
No, that's great. Let's stay right there for a second because it's awesome. I really love this because the first thing I love about this is usually what the lawyer will first say is that will never work. Like they'll just tell you it won't work. Like that won't work. Uh, and so what's fascinating to me, and you've been doing it for 20 years, is how many times when I've packaged something, licensed it, I mean, sold it to clients and it worked beautifully, that I'd have lawyers literally say that will never work. And I profoundly, you're profoundly dumbfounded. I'm profoundly dumbfounded looking at the lawyer going, so you think I'm lying about this? So you think I've made this up and that I'm selling this thing to clients and been doing it for years, and you think that I made this up because you're telling me it will never work. And then I point out the obvious fact, well, I don't know. It's like working now. I'm making it work. Clients are writing checks for it. And then they pivot to, well, that will never work for me and my practice because my practice is so unique and so different. And I am so amazing. And then you're like, you profoundly look at them again and you're like, well, I'm not particularly bright. In fact, I think I'm having the advantage of being less smart than most lawyers. And I'm looking at them. And then they go to, well, that will never work in my market. So then they say, well, that'll never work in my market because I'm either in a big city, little city, rural city, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. You just insert where we're at. Well, that will never work. And then there's like I call it the 7 stages of an Atticus idea. There's a couple other stages behind that. But I find it fascinating because I quit licensing the corporate counsel advantage. I think I'm going to start doing it again because AI is going to commoditize some of the corporate work so quickly. But the the reason I pulled it from the market was I was spending so much time coaching lawyers on practice issues. Like I was like putting a turbocharger in the engine of their car to drive faster. And that's how I perceived it. And I could teach them how to take an hourly practice and make it a fixed price practice and really just simplify their life very quickly. But a lot of lawyers would like drive up in a car with no tires. And I'm like, you have no tires on your car. Like, we can't make it go faster. You have no staff. You have no process. Your pricing's a wreck. You, everything that you're doing, it makes no sense to me. I can't. We'd still license it to people, and we used to. I had a money back guarantee. I used to give a lot of money back because the lawyers, I can't. This doesn't work. No, you don't work. you know, you don't work. You haven't changed anything. You haven't changed your pricing. You haven't hired any good team. You're not training your team. You're not marketing well. You're still doing the same stupid crap you were doing when you walked in and started licensing the process. You actually haven't changed at all. So you're never going to grow further. You're not going to change anything until something changes. And the first thing that's got to change is you. Like, you have to change how you think. You have to change your mindset. So it's totally fascinating to me that you can do this. You've been doing it for 20 plus years. You've licensed and talked to other lawyers. There will be lawyers that will listen to this episode and literally say, yeah, that won't work. They'll just say, literally, we'll say that will never work, or they'll never work for me, or will never work in my practice, whether my practice is immigration, estate planning, real estate, you name it. They'll say that packaging and distinguishing their commoditized initial consultation into a unique offering that drips with value will never work. And that's why they will always be working themselves to death. They'll just be, they'll probably never be a good client for Atticus, but they'll never, it's almost impossible to talk to that person. It's like, this will never work. And you're like, you have to look at them and go, at least for me, I have to look at them and go, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It'll never work for you. And you just have to walk away from that person because there's not much you can do for them. They are so committed to being right. They're so committed to their view of the world, so committed to what they're thinking that there's nothing that you can do to help them. You just need to step back and just back away. Just back away and say, that's awesome. Good luck. Go get them. And, and just step away. So I don't know how you've done it. I mean, you've been, I know you've been talking about this for years, encouraging lawyers to do this for years. You basically outline the steps to do it. Like, you do this, do this, do this, do this. Here's the benefits. Do this, do this, do this, do this. There'll be some lawyers right now that are taking notes on this, going, I'm going to try it, but they're going to fall back. They're going to fall back just like your friend did in Texas. Because what's got to change first, Lonny, in your eyes? What's got to change?
Well, great points. You're right. I mean, you have to change your attitude before you can do this. And I remember when I introduced this idea to Mark Powers a number of years ago, and he said, I mean, he couldn't believe everybody wasn't doing this. Like, just he never understood it. It didn't make any sense, and it was one of the things that he pushed hard. But again, you have to have a good mindset. I had to train lawyers in my firm to use the system, right? And it's a lot of work, but I'm very committed to it, and it works, and I know it works. And we've discussed this. We know these systems can work, and they can work very, very well. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Boy, you hit it right on, Steve. That it's the attitude of the person. If the person doesn't want to do it, then don't do it. I mean, I'm not doing this. I'm not saying this because I want the attorney to make more money. You will make more money. I mean, that's a given, but that's not why I'm doing it. I want to make sure I can provide great value to the client, and there's a great way to do it. And so many of the steps that we do as attorneys in family law, they're the same steps. I mean, you've got your parenting issues, you've got child support, spousal support, property division, the same stuff every time. So you can put together a package that talks about all of that stuff. And we give you documents on each one of those things. But, the thing that's going to, it's not an AI thing, because by me meeting with you, my experience helps me give you really good advice on strategy, on ways to do things. Sometimes the strategy is don't do anything, stay in it. Or, don't start a divorce case right now. Timing's really bad for a bunch of reasons. AI won't be able to tell you that. I can tell you that. And so that's what, again, it just makes the system so much better. And at the end of the meeting, I know that person really well. I've asked all the questions. I know there's not a lot that I don't know about that person. Whereas in a half-hour consultation, there's no way you could do that. There's no way. Not a possibility. So get out of that system, stay away from it, think about doing something different, and there's just a better way.
Fantastic. I got a couple transition questions for you. You've outlined this beautifully. And if there's a lawyer out there listening, how would you tell them first to get started? Because the thing that I hope, and you've hit really hard, you have to listen and shift your mindset into what the prospect's fears are, what the prospect's concerns are, how you can create value for that prospect. And you have to break away from the gravitational pull of how normal, average lawyers practice and think about how you make a difference for that person. So those are the things I hear that you're doing already, like doing very intentionally, very focused. If you were to give advice to a lawyer, and I don't care what practice area, what would you suggest they do? And you've outlined it beautifully, but how would you suggest they start?
Yeah, it's a good question, Steve. I think that understanding the value proposition, which again is really hard for people who are used to an hourly rate. Okay, it's just hard. So you have to try to get yourself out of the hourly rate thinking, get yourself into understanding again what's the value that you're going to provide. And again, let's take an estate, not my area, but wills and estates. You could provide people with the same kind of package for people in that area. If there's somebody had died and you now need to probate the estate and the will, etc., then you could put together a package. Here's what we could do for you. We'll do it. We'll do all of these things. And here's the information, and here's the video. All of the things that you can do. But understand from the client's perspective, if I'm sitting there as a client, like, I don't know what to do. Somebody died. I don't know. My life's in turmoil. I don't know what to do. Calm down. We're here to help you, and we're gonna tell you what it is for this price. You come in, and here's what the price is going to be, known in advance. If you put yourself in the client's shoes, you'll do much better. That's the hard thing, is getting attorneys to think that way. But that's where I would direct them, is think in terms of the client. How can you make it better? Your package, Steve, talk about it a little bit, but the thing that you did, the council package, the corporate thing that you did was exactly that. Like, as a user, as a person that would be using it, it was fantastic. It dealt with everything that I would ever want, including that one free question or something. I forget. You used to.
Yeah.
Well, it was fantastic. I mean, it was just fantastic.
Yep. It was called the one quick question solution. So basically, they could call with one quick question. So there's a lot to talk about there, but let's do this instead, because I want this to be about you, and I do have a request of you. We are launching a family law specific group, and we have group programs. They're called Great Practice, Great Life Journey, and this will be just for family law lawyers. And I know, it's a little bit of a trip and things like that, but would you be open, once we launch this group, to doing a more comprehensive conversation about the marital assessment with the members of this group via Zoom? So you don't have to come from Calgary, you don't have to bring donuts, although I'd love to see you. But
I'll ship them up.
yeah, ship them up. Would you be open to doing that for us
Of
for a
course.
couple hours?
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Great. You guys have great people in your program that are usually open to this kind of thing. So I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, that's my thought. So it would kind of get the people away that are telling you this will never work. It's a stupid idea. You're stupid. And, and I've had people tell me that. And get you in with a select group of family law lawyers that are looking to grow their practice, have a great life, and that are really colleagues supporting each other and on that journey. And we're launching that, beginning of 2026. So if you're up for that, I'd love to have you come in as kind of a guest lecturer. I mean, you've got 40 years experience. You're a marketing maven, but this is one of the things that I really want to bring you on to the show and talk about, which is how to take your initial consultation, how to take packaging, how to break free of the commodity of the free consultation, how to break free of the hourly rate, how to provide so much value that your clients call regretfully and say, I chose wrong. I should have stayed with you. I had the shot to work with you. But it also, and this is the thing that's so beautiful about it, it is a phenomenal filtration process through the prospect pipeline. As the prospects come in, they get filtered. And if you're any good in family law, any good, your two biggest threats are, first and foremost, bad client selection, like taking on bad cases, right? And two, hiring bad team. And so if you've got great clients, you'll keep great team. What are your thoughts? I mean, is there anything else you want to add? Because you've done a great job, and I really appreciate taking the time and spelling this so so simply out and so practically out. Like, it's a practical approach that people can take.
Not a lot, Steve. I have some materials. I mean, I could send them to you. I've got a little background on the system that we have. I'm not here to try to sell the system. That's not really. I just want people to to understand there's a better way to do things. Like I said, whether you apply this to another area of the law or family law, mine is certainly family law because that was my area for all of these years. But it's just there's just a better way to do things, and everybody can be happier, right? The clients are happier, and then you'll be happier. I mean, it's kind of a pretty positive thing, isn't it, to do it that way? And we should be doing it that way.
I think it's perfect. Happier clients, happier lawyer, happier life.
Right.
With that, my friend, let's go ahead and wrap up today. Thank you for being
Thank
part
you.
of our journey and our conversation, and thanks for just being you. Like, I love every time I get the chance to hang out with you. Have a great time.
You're great. Thank you very much for everything.
Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.